Politics Nation with Reverend Al Sharpton starts right now. Good evening, Rev.
Good evening, Ed, and thanks to you for tuning in. I'm live tonight in St. Louis. Tonight's lead, Remembering Michael Brown. Thousands of mourners gathered at a St. Louis church today to say goodbye to 18-year-old Michael Brown, the young man shot and killed by a police officer more than 2 weeks ago. His killing sparked weeks of protest in Ferguson and across the country, prompting both President Obama and Attorney General Eric Holder to speak out. You got to deal with the streets in Ferguson and St. Louis. The Brown family asked me to give the eulogy today, and I explained how I first took a call from Michael's grandfather after seeing video of his grandson's body on the ground for what ended up being more than 4 hours. When I saw Michael laying there, I thought about how many of us were just considered nothing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How we were just marginalized and ignored. Whatever the circumstance and investigation lead to have that boy laying there. Like nobody cared about him. Like he didn't have any loved ones. Like his life value didn't matter. And I said, plug his grandfather through. I said, I don't know what happened, but whatever we can do, I'll be there to do it. The whole country has watched Ferguson, and we've watched Michael Brown's parents, even in their unimaginable grief. They've acted with grace and dignity. Afternoon. Leslie and Michael Sr. will have to do something that is out of order. They will have to lay their son to rest. Order says that children bury their parents. Right. It is out of order, David Banner, for children to be buried by their parents. We should not sit here today and act like we're watching something that is in order. In all of our religious and spiritual celebration, let us not lose sight of the fact that this young man should be doing his second week in college. They had to break their mourning to ask folks to stop looting and rioting. Can you imagine their heart broken, their son taken, discarded and marginalized, and they have to stop mourning to get you to control your anger like you more angry than they are. Their grief is unimaginable, but unfortunately, there are families just like the Brown family all over the country. What does God require of us? In 3 weeks, we saw Marlon Pinnock, a woman in Los Angeles, laid out on the freeway, Congresswoman Maxine Waters. A California highway patrolman hit her 15 times on video with no weapon in her hand, nothing, no threat to her. Right after that, a man, they said that he had Lucy cigarettes, and they put an illegal chokehold on him. Man videoed it 11 times. He said, I couldn't breathe. And the man, a policeman, wouldn't let him go. Later that week, we see Michael laying on the ground. America, it's time to deal with policing. We are not the haters, we're the healers.
We can't ignore what we've seen. That's why we must continue to peacefully protest and get the change this country needs.
I sat up in the hotel and took out my Bible. And I turned to the end of the book.
Yes!
I don't know how long the investigation will be. I don't know how long the journey will be. But I know how this story gonna end. The first will be last. The last will be first. The lion and the lamb gonna lay down together. And God will make a way for his children. I've been to the end of the book. Justice is gonna come. Justice is gonna come. Justice gonna come.
When I was a young activist and studying ministry, there was a famous theologian that said that the arc of the universe is long, but it bends toward justice. Dr. Martin Luther King used to say that, but it doesn't bend without the participation of all of us. I hope that with all of the trauma and all the reaction, that we do our part to bring justice for all sides, not against police, but against wrong if they're wrong, and the elements in the community that also need to understand violence is not the way. Joining me now are Antonio French, a St. Louis alderman, and Patricia Bynes, committeewoman of Ferguson Township. Thank you both for being here tonight.
Thank you
for having us.
Alderman French, let me go to you first. You've been on the ground so much in Ferguson. What's the mood like today after the funeral?
Well, I think it's somber. This was an opportunity for people in the community to come out and show their support for the family and help them mourn and show them that we do have their backs for the long haul and their fight for justice. As you know, it was a very well-attended funeral. Hundreds, thousands of people came, and I think it was a strong show of support for the family.
Patricia, let me ask you, you were there with us this morning. What is next for the town?
Well, Reverend Al, first I wanted to say thank you so much for your words. They were so healing, not only to the family, but to the community. It was a message that we needed to hear. And I want to thank Antonio so much for helping and coming out and helping us here in Ferguson, because what's next is the hard work, where we're rolling up our sleeves. So now is the real strategy meetings, and we're going to be focusing on voter education. We've had a lot of registration, and now we want to make sure people understand what they are voting for and what their vote impacts. We're going to be working to make sure that businesses want to come back and invest in Ferguson. And this is the hard part. This is the part where all of us are going to get involved and turn this around.
Now, I want to ask you this, Patricia. The shooting, after the shooting happened, I referred to it in the eulogy, Michael Brown's body was left in the street for more than 4 hours. The New York Times put together a timeline of what happened. At 12:07 p.m. on Saturday, August 9th, county police received a report of the shooting. A paramedic arrived at 12:10 and checked for a pulse. Officers arrived at 12:15 and used a sheet to only partially cover the body. Detectives didn't arrive for more than an hour at around 1:30. And it was another hour around 2:30 before a forensic investigator arrived. The body was finally checked into the morgue at 4:37. I mean, can you talk about how upsetting this was for the family and the community for this young man to lay there over 4 hours? Patricia?
I think they have my information.
I don't know if she can hear me.
Now I hear him.
We got your back.
I don't know if she could hear me, but I think that a lot of people did not get how this, in many ways, was what outraged a lot of the young people in the community, is that he laid there for 4 hours and his family and everyone coming out, coming around, and they wouldn't move the body, wouldn't let they roped it off, wouldn't let the family near him, and he's just laying there. And Patricia, I think this timeline of him laying there, I think you're back with me, I think this is what really outraged a lot of the neighborhood and the community and really added to the pain of the family.
You're exactly right, Rev. When I got to the scene, his body had just gotten picked up, and people were outraged. I heard them say things like they treated him like he was trash in the middle of the street. They wouldn't let a dog lay down in the middle of the street that long. That's where the outrage is coming from. So when people don't understand why people in the community are so angry, and it's happened so openly in broad daylight in front of their homes, people couldn't leave their doors and look out their windows without seeing this. This is what the outrage is for the lack of human respect that it seemed to have taken place regarding the way this happened. This is what the outrage is really about.
And Antonio, you know, another really startling front page, this in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch this weekend, showing the disparity between the percentages of black residents in local towns compared to the percentages of black police officers. In Ferguson, 67% of the residents are black compared to only 7% of the police officers. But that's not alone. In Bellefontaine, which neighbors Ferguson, 73% of the residents are black compared to just 3% of the police. In Riverview, where 70% of the residents are black, there are no black officers. In 30 of the 31 communities the paper looked at, the percentage of black residents is higher than the proportion of black officers. What kind of problems does this cause, Antonio?
It causes a huge problem. You know, the situation in Ferguson is not unique, especially for communities out here in North St. Louis County. You have a lot of cities that are largely African American with largely white police forces, and those white police officers are not even from that community. They come from other communities to police those neighborhoods. That creates a great deal of tension, especially among the young African American men, who are disproportionately the ones that are pulled over, the ones that are arrested, the ones that are charged, and often the ones that face abuse. And so this, you know, hopefully we're about to turn this moment here into a movement and try to repair some of these injustices and inequalities that occur here in St. Louis and hopefully across the country.
I want to say quickly, Michael Brown's father, he spoke eloquently at a peace rally last night. I want to play quickly what he said.
Tomorrow, all I want is peace while my son is being laid to rest. Please, take a day of silence so we can lay our son to rest. Yes. Please. Yes. That's all I ask. And thank you.
Do you think that Patricia, the community, will heed his appeal to remember his son in peace and to pursue justice, but not do it with violence?
I do. I even noticed last night there weren't as many people out. Right now, there aren't very many people out, and people want to respect the family's wishes. So I do believe that tonight is going to be very silent, but we're a community that we bounce back. So tomorrow, don't be surprised if we're back out here in the streets, because this is when the real hard work begins.
All right, Antonio French and Patricia Bynes, thank you so much to both of you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Coming up, should a special prosecutor take over the Michael Brown case? New questions tonight about that and about the grand jury. Also, what the White House is doing about all this military hardware in our police departments. It's a big push to make sure our streets don't look like war zones. And President Obama returns to the White House with key decisions on ISIS and immigration. What will he do? Stay with us.